Hi everyone. Just before I get into that, thanks for joining today. The Alfasoft Demo Days. It's a great opportunity for Alfasoft products and people involved in the customers. I think it's a great thing to do, and I appreciate being invited and being able to talk to you. My name is Andrew McGough. Some of you probably know me. I'm sure I've talked to some of you. I've been with the Mathcad product team since 2010. Since Prime was first released, and I started using Mathcad back in the mid 90s when I worked for Marconi back in the UK. There was really interesting poll questions, probably something that I would have helped if I dug into that before I put this presentation together. I structured it to talk a little bit about what Mathcad is, assuming that there are people that were listening in who may not have used the product or may not know the worth of it. Really useful feedback on who's using what and plans to move to Prime 8. Absolutely. I'm the biggest advocate of using the product that has the functionality in that you need, and I hope that the drive of what we're doing right now and have done over the last few years with Mathcad is try and show the customers that we have a roadmap to get the functionality in the product that you all need. So for this session, as I mentioned, firstly, I am going to go through, what Mathcad is and what's in it that makes it what we think is a valuable tool in the product design process. And I will talk about what's next. Mathcad Prime is a strategically important part of PTC's product portfolio. It's just as much as it was when it was acquired by PTC back in the early 2000s, as it is now. It is an important part. It fits in a position in the product lifecycle management that it is a fairly unique position where you're defining the source of the data, the engineering knowledge, and its its ability to document and calculate engineering math. I think is as important today for us and customers as it was, I think, when it was first released all those years ago. So before we look at what Mathcad is, I try and get through this bit as succinctly as possible. I just want to look at the challenges it was designed to overcome. So the engineering calculations that form the basis of product design, and I used at every stage in development. And again, I remember doing this back when I worked in industry. Throughout I was a systems engineer, so throughout the systems engineering process that I was part of, they're often excluded from the same formality of management as other product design information, and this information ultimately does define the design. So it can be argued it's the most important to document correctly. There's been a lack of standardized processes and tools for documenting this kind of stuff. A company may use several tools spread across several departments and companies, and many of those tools may not be designed to manage the different components of engineering knowledge. And because of this, the management of information becomes complex, traceability becomes difficult, and this risks the successful reuse of important data. So the impact of these challenges is difficult to fix without significant work. Engineering calculations managed using these multiple tools, not designed for the task, can result in poor communication and loss of knowledge through process inefficiencies. Without early validation, the design might not be optimized. If your traceability is incomplete between the engineering and the design, that could result in the final product not doing what the market needs. And again, I've seen this in action. I used to work. That my mentor back when I started as a systems engineer would tell me that defining the subsystems is obviously very important, but how those subsystems connect is also very important. If you get the connection from one to the other, and back when I started, we were talking about wiring. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter how well the two subsystems are designed, the whole system isn't going to work. And to a certain extent, that's analogous to what we're doing here is, we're trying to make sure that the engineering knowledge that connects all of these parts of the process together is documented and understood and managed in a way that allows it to be passed along to each part of the process, so you don't lose that knowledge. So if you don't do this correct, your final product might not do what the market needs. Math errors could be caught late, and that could really impact the success of the product. So what engineers in the enterprise, I think, need is a solution for managing the engineering knowledge that allows engineers to record and communicate the design intent quickly and easily. So when people use the right software for the right purpose, they become more productive. Communicating the results is as important as calculating them. And engineering activities don't happen in isolation, but as part of processes that support other business initiatives. And to that end, user experience, the documentation functionality, extensive and robust calculation engine, these are paramount for users to successfully record live engineering calculations. And those really were the kind of main driving design points for Mathcad. You know, we want people to be able to use the right software for the right purpose. It needs to be able to communicate what people are doing, and it needs to be able to build into other processes in the design lifecycle. This is probably an image I've used many times. Around about time, I should get the marketing department to update this because my design skills when it comes to graphics aren't that good. But it's a simple image, and it's a simple proposition, right? PTC Mathcad is a digital engineering notebook used to perform your calculations and manage your engineering intent. And we can break that down into how we do that in the product at the very top level, into two areas of focus: the documentation, so we can communicate what we're doing, and the calculation, so we actually have the live management of calculations. So we need to strike a balance between those two, between release to release, to make sure that the functionality in one adequately complements the other. I mean, you can have a really good math engine, but if you can't enter the math particularly well, you're going to lose the use of that. And conversely, it could look beautiful, but if there are deficiencies in the engine, it doesn't matter how easy to use it is, you can't trust the parameters that you're getting from the product. So we try and plan these releases to make sure we can offer enhancements across all of those parts of the product. So let's take a closer look at what you can do with Mathcad. So there are several ways Mathcad enables users to manage live calculations. It's document oriented, so it allows rich presentation features to be combined with the math engine. There's advanced engineering math tools to manipulate calculations, and integrations to third parties to help you fit Mathcad into your existing design process. And again, and I know how I'm probably going to come back to this point, one overriding requirement we have, no matter how much functionality we want to put into the product, is that users should be able to feel comfortable and productive within 15 to 20 minutes of using the product. You know, the complexity of the work in Mathcad is ultimately driven by the people that are creating the content and what they need to do with it. But picking the product up and starting to use it should be easy for both authors of the worksheets and consumers. And you know, we need to make we need to highlight a difference here between ease of use and the ability for a product to do complicated things. I know I've heard in the past that you know, one of the things that I think Mathcad Prime does really well is the equation editor. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You know, entering math is very easy, but that might make it seem like it's a simple tool. Just because you can use the tool in a simple way doesn't mean that the tool itself is simple. It just means that if you need to create complicated worksheets filled with calculations, it just makes it easier to do that. And that's an important point to highlight, I think. So Mathcad has a ribbon user interface, so you can quickly access functions. If you don't want to take your hands off the keyboard, there are extensive keyboard shortcuts for all the major commands and insert functions. We try and maintain those keyboard shortcuts across keyboards and the languages we support. It's not always particularly easy. I think in older versions of Mathcad, we had something around 90 keyboard shortcuts, and in Mathcad Prime, because of the depth of math functionality and documentation we have, I think we have something like 120 keyboard shortcuts. Keyboards are different across different languages. Languages are different. Sometimes keys just don't exist on different keyboards, so there are different key bindings. So we try and do our best to make sure that all functionality is covered by keyboard shortcuts across all languages. There are some that we simply can't do. There are some keys that just don't exist. But you know, there's a huge depth of functionality we try and externalize through the keyboard. And I think that's great, and we try and manage that well, because it really does make a difference if you just want to sit there and just type, move around and type. You can really, it becomes very intuitive to create a worksheet filled with math if you can just do it via the keyboard. The environment is multi-tabbed. You can view several worksheets at once. And Mathcad provides many document formatting and control features that you'll be used to from other word processing software. When math becomes complex, it can be difficult to follow. So we have a range of visual presentation features to help color the information. You can add text to add clarity to the math. You can add images. Text and math can be formatted the way you want, and you can add plots to visualize your data. And there are other documentation-centric things like collapsible, lockable areas, so you can manage, the flow of your worksheet. The comprehensive math engine in Mathcad provides the ability for numeric and symbolic math to be calculated, and you can write and calculate math that uses both. The symbolic engine we use in Prime 8 and in Prime 9 is now 3 releases old. We introduced it back in Prime 6. And it became the default in Prime 7. Again, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but we have complete control over what we can do with that. And the amount of work we're able to put in that, I think, has been shown in the last few releases. And it may be seen as a niche area of functionality, but you'd be surprised how much application there is for symbolic math in designing real-world products. We have a lot of people that don't think they use symbolics, but they actually do. And we've been going back over enhancement requests from customers that have come in over the years that we couldn't do anything about with the legacy engine we had, that we're doing stuff with now. And I think it's down to us to produce use cases and workflows to show customers, look, this is a really useful piece of new functionality, and this is how you can use it to document your engineering. There's a rich function library included. You can add your own custom functions. And the built-in unit support, which is one of the bedrocks of Mathcad, allows disparate unit systems to be used with no risk of unit compatibility issues. So units are combined and results provided in the unit of your choice. Mathcad includes an easy-to-use math programming language for algorithm development and other calculations that require a programmatic response. Solve blocks can be used to optimize a set of design parameters, and those parameters can be adjusted to quickly explore design changes. And it also includes comprehensive support for matrices, so you can calculate matrix math really easily. So you can integrate Mathcad with other PLM tools. You can manage it in your content control system, and it has a powerful integration with Creo. Something I want to do more with, but right now I'm focused on the core Mathcad functionality, which is I think right now the highest priority for customers. There are many different ways in which external data can be brought in, represented, and used in Mathcad worksheets. There are multiple file access functions allowing you to read in or write to files of data. We've got a great integration with Excel. In fact, a number of different integrations with Excel. You can read Excel data in. We have a graphical read Excel function to read Excel data in, or we have you can embed the Excel Olay object into Mathcad, or we have the Excel embed the Excel spreadsheet as an Excel component, which makes it really easy to interface with the power of Excel. And something I've done a really bad job on, I think, is advertising the API we have at Mathcad. And I think next year, or in the coming months, I want to do a better job of structuring discussions around the API. Right now, it's simple but powerful commands in the API you can use to build Mathcad into other applications and other design processes, where you can open, change values, calculate, and get values from Mathcad. You know, we finally did what we should have done and put a really useful API help guide in help, and hopefully you know, more API applications that include Mathcad can be produced over the coming months and years. And again, to make integration to your processes easier, we have default templates and the ability to create and distribute custom templates. So you can standardize on the look and feel and even content in some ways of your company worksheets. You can include separate Mathcad worksheets into your worksheet and cache them there. And we have now a standalone built-in legacy worksheet converter. So you can convert older versions of the software to the new version. So, I mean, again, it sounds like a lot of you have used or know what Mathcad looks like. But for those that don't, I just wanted to open Mathcad. I want to show you what it looks like. This is the desktop. As I said, it's a tabbed user interface with your commands here. There's a worksheet area here where you can put calculation. What you see is what you print. This is you know, how the document will look if you print it, if you need paper copies to store. The range of functionality is included in the ribbon, so you can insert different region types. Those region types allow you to put different types of content in. The main ones being math and text. So you can define math, you can define text. We have many different math operators. The last one that we're going to add, gradient operator in Prime 9, we'll be adding in Prime 9. You can insert symbols, programming, programming items, constant symbolics. You can change unit systems. Custom unit systems is something that we're going to be working on for Prime 10. So that is on our roadmap. I can look at labels. Labels are how you define identifiers in the worksheet. So if you put in an identifier A = 6, right now that's a variable, but you can change that to make it a unit or a constant. And under math formatting, you can change how that looks. You can define how a variable or constant looks in the worksheet. So at a glance, you can tell what you're looking at in the worksheet. As I mentioned, you can cache other Mathcad worksheets. We have a converter. We have ways of getting data into Mathcad and ways of getting data out of Mathcad. You can insert objects here. We have the new combo box control, which is you know, the ability to structure different values for different variables in a drop-down menu, so you can change the configuration of your worksheet pretty quickly just by selecting a different value. The comprehensive function menu with an all function browser, so you can search for the function that you need in the built-in functions that we have. Matrix math. This tab is nearly all matrix math. There are many commands and actions here that are replicated in keyboard shortcuts that allow you to manipulate matrices, very large matrices in some cases. The ability to add different types of plots. Math formatting. So it's what we're doing here. This is a math region, and here the math formatting has been highlighted with a yellow background. We have label styles, result formatting. If you have the value of an equation, you can set the formatting of the result. Label styles I mentioned earlier. This is a debug build. This is a pre-release build, so we have some stuff in here for our development team. This is going into a little bit of Prime 9, actually. Some stuff on these ribbons aren't actually in the current release, and I'm going to be talking about this a little bit later. You know, you can set text styles, text font, sorry, here. Paragraph options. This is new functionality we're adding in Prime 9, text styles, which I'll talk a little bit about later. You can add hyperlinks. Here's some new functionality we're adding in Prime 9, the ability to tag internal regions with links, so you can move around within the worksheet pretty seamlessly. And we have the spell check. Calculation options. Again, just sometimes quite in-depth calculation options you might want to set at a worksheet level or at system level to define how your worksheet integrates with calculations. Some document options, the stuff that you would expect to see if you were using something like Word, right? Adding space, removing space, page sizes, margins, custom margins, headers and footers. And again, something I think I don't do a good job of is the resources tab. I get questions from customers sometimes, how do I do this? How do I do that? There's a lot of reference material on this resources tab. Read this first document, how to install the migration guide, which helps customers move from legacy versions to new versions. The what's new document, which tells customers what's in this version. Tutorials, very useful if you want to get up and start using Mathcad quickly. A link to the help, a link to the keyboard shortcuts document. Again, I'm working on making sure that keyboard shortcut document, when it's localized into different languages, has the correct, lists all of the correct keyboard shortcuts if there are different ones across keyboards, which in some cases we do, just to make sure we have shortcuts on different keyboards and in different languages. A link to the community, which is a very, very vocal community driven by very passionate Mathcad fans. I get a lot of feedback from that. Some of it critical, which is always useful for me because it enables me to see what customers have issues with. And we use that information and build it into our design process, into our prioritization process. So it's always a good place to go to if you have questions or you want to talk to like-minded Mathcad users. Engineering resources, blogs, and the Learning Connector, which takes you through a bunch of, again, online tutorials and videos and how to do things in Mathcad. And we're trying to update those from release to release to make sure there's more information there. So these worksheets I'm showing right now, I won't run through these. These are just examples of how you can structure things like very simple worksheets. This is a one-page worksheet to calculate the preload force, the actual force of a caliper bolt at a given torque, right? It's an equation. In this particular case, it's set as an output region because we use this to drive a Creo model. So depending on the input conditions for the caliper bolt, we'll get different force that we push into Creo that gets used in simulation. I think this worksheet calculates some parameters based on different size clutch discs, which are defined in this combo box. We have an internal and external diameter. So when you choose this, the calculations change, and the output of this is the final number of plates you need for this particular use case. And again, we have a mix of math, a mix of collapsible areas where you can put stuff that you don't need to have displayed to everybody, but is useful in the calculation. This is so again, this is I find a very useful worksheet to discuss the value prop for Mathcad. Right, there's an introduction. What are we doing? What's the problem? Here's some initial calculations. We might not want to show those initial calculations. They may only be useful for, the underlying calculation of the worksheet. Highlight some initial conditions by math formatting them to stand out. We have a combo box here to change the altitude. So here we're changing one of the parameters. We may have design considerations, and we want to do some what if scenarios. And then ultimately we get a plot to show the wind speed versus output power, and some actual values for that, which in this particular case are stored in an Excel component. Take the values out from the worksheet and push them into the Excel component, and then we collapse that, and it's presented in a nice tabular form. And again, same with this critical speed of a shaft bearing. It's very similar. In this particular case, I think in this you need to change a value here, I think, to see different outputs, different plot characteristics. We could use a combo box here outside of here and drive this with a combo box and just set values for specific situations we know we want to cover. So going back to the presentation, the Mathcad timeline. That was 9 that I showed you. We're on Prime 8 right now. Prime 8 came out earlier this year. over the last few years, we've continued the yearly release frequency, which is in line with other PTC products. Prime 8 was released in early March. Prime 9 will be released in March 2023, Prime 10 in 2024. And focus for these releases always starts with what we call gap fill enhancements. That's adding functionality to Mathcad Prime that legacy Mathcad users have come to rely on. So this continues to be the focus moving forward through Prime 9 and onwards. And we're over halfway through the development and test of Prime 9. So continue to focus on details for that release, but we've started to look at things for Prime 10 and later releases, and I can talk about that a little bit later. When we add functionality to Prime, we always prioritize it based on user input at the time. So although there's infrastructure work we need to do to stay current with things like new versions of operating system, new versions of .NET, third-party components, we need to make sure that we update those to stay current with later versions. The main goal is to provide the functionality Mathcad users need. So we listen to customer feedback, and our job is to prioritize and implement that functionality in each release, depending on the feedback for the previous release. So built on an intuitive and innovative equation control interface that makes entering math content really easy, the equation control, the early versions of Prime included the most widely requested items like unit support, comprehensive function library, symbolics, and the Excel component. More recent versions have continued that trend with things like area protection, equation wrapping, 2D plot enhancements, spell check, the combo box. And in Prime 6, we introduced the new symbolic engine. And in each release, we've significantly improved and added to that. So there may be functionality on this list that isn't used by some customers, and there may be functionality not in here that customers want to see. And we try to take the customer base as a whole into account when prioritizing content. So if what users need to see in the product isn't in it yet, it's not because we don't know about it or don't care to put it in. We document all the customer feedback and always use it as the basis for new release prioritization efforts. So it doesn't mean that we don't want to continue to hear from users. On the contrary, it's that feedback that informs our release content decision process. So there are things that I would like to see in the product now, but when we talk to the customer base as a whole, actually, I think a good example of this is a little while ago, after I talked to customers at we had a Mathference a little while ago, a virtual conference. Textiles is going to be part of Prime 9, and somebody reached out and said, I don't understand why you're putting textiles in. Why don't you listen to customers and put in the stuff that we really want? And it might be that customer doesn't use textiles. But of all of the functionality that I have on the list that I want to put in the product, textiles is, if not at the top of customer requested current functionality. And I'm sure there are people out there that won't use it and will say, no, I want this instead. But we're trying to collate everything we get and put in what the broad consensus of users' opinions point to. And textiles was that one. Again, it doesn't mean that we're not listening. We are, and recording all of this, so we will put it in the product, and it does get prioritized. And I'll go through some of the stuff that we have for future releases at the the end of the presentation. So Prime 8 came out early this year. Most of the content, again, driven by customer feedback. Prime 8 contains updates in several areas of functionality. There's application updates, which are generally the UI and the user experience stuff, where you actually sit down and put stuff into the product. We have symbolic and numeric engine updates, usability enhancements, and miscellaneous functionality. Usability enhancements, I think, are really important for me because they're the updates that make using Mathcad on a day-to-day basis much easier. And it's not a focus we had before, I'd say, last release, but I'm trying to make sure that each release we put out now, we listen to feedback from customers along the lines of, I love writing worksheets, but there's this really strange workaround I have to do when I'm trying to do this particular thing. And I want to be able to build into the product an easier way of doing that, just so the day-to-day use is much easier. And I think that really is a highlight of a living application, right? Listening to customers, making it just a little bit easier to use on a day-to-day basis. So we've added some nice usability updates. So the updates we added in the application include redefinition warnings, partial derivative operator, copy and paste multiple values to the combo box. There were some targeted numeric engine updates. The redefinition warnings is one of our top requested customer items to add. That's a nice one to talk about. These are warnings that inform users when identifiers such as variables or constants are redefined. So in complex worksheets, it's a really useful calculation management notification. There were a raft of symbolic engine updates, including improvements to integral transforms and many of the symbolic keywords. And again, I think as it's the third release of Mathcad since we include new symbolic engine, it's demonstrable how much of a benefit that's been to actually have that level of control over what we can do with it in the product. Like I said, customers can spend up to hours at a time in Mathcad, so making the day-to-day use is important. So we get feedback from customers, and we try and put these sometimes small items of usability updates in. So like the new worksheet tab menu in Prime 8, providing access to many of the most used worksheet commands is quite useful. We made some improvements to Zoom, the ability to rearrange worksheets, and there's a new clear text command. And Prime 8 supports Windows 11, and for legacy Mathcad users, there's a save as HTML functionality that allow them to see what a legacy Mathcad worksheet would look like without having to have legacy Mathcad. So when they convert worksheets, they can compare and contrast between the converted worksheet and what they had in their legacy worksheet. So what's next? So we started work on Prime 9 at the end of March this year, after tweaking the candidate content list based on the initial feedback we got from customers on Prime 8. We also started to look at Primes 10 and 11 with some initial design work and prototyping planned to be executed in a month or two's time, actually, before even Prime 9 comes out. Again, each release, we try and strike a balance between new features and where necessary, where user feedback guides us, weight that prioritization effort on areas that at the time need the most focus. And we get that feedback through sales, our subject matter experts, resellers, the PTC Mathcad community idea site, feed that to us through Alfasoft. And we do listen, and we take those requests and we use them to inform us on what we need to prioritize for the next and upcoming releases. I mean, the items we add in each release were added then because at the time, that's what people were asking for. And moving forward, that's how we want to continue structuring the releases. So like I mentioned before, one of the most requested areas of functionality in Mathcad is the ability to set text styles. Now, this isn't a piece of math functionality, but it is a piece of math functionality. It is a piece of functionality that enables you to structure a worksheet that presents the problem, the engineering knowledge, in a much easier manner. So that will be in Prime 9, and it's probably unexpectedly complex. We're doing it better than we did before in legacy Mathcad. I think in Mathcad Prime 9, just trying to find one of the worksheets that has multiple headings. You can actually select region level stuff and change the change the text style. I believe in legacy versions you can only change the content. Now you can change the content. You can choose multiple text regions. You can check all regions. And again, like you'd expect, you can create new styles, and then those styles will move with the worksheets from worksheet to worksheet. We'll be providing the ability to link from and to regions internally within the worksheet, so you can set up links to any region within the worksheet. Now, I know in the past that's functionality that's been used to create like pseudo table of contents, right? You can create a text region and tag that text with a link to a math region later in the document. It's not going to replace table of contents. That's not something that we've had in Mathcad in the past, even in legacy versions, but we do have a plan to put in automated table of contents. And now we have text styles and internal links we can use those two functionalities together to help us create an automated table of contents for a future release. So those two areas of functionalities they enhance documentation of the product, but we also need to balance that by working on items that have an impact on calculation, right? Ultimately, what you're doing with Mathcad is manipulating numbers. So to that end, we're also adding the last missing operator, the gradient operator, and providing the ability to solve partial differential equations in solve blocks. And I mentioned before that we need to balance the feature list we add to each release to make sure we cover the different areas of the application. But ultimately, like I said, Mathcad is an engineering calculation application. The simple interface we've designed to allow you to enter math can make it seem like the tool is simple, but it's not, as evidenced by the huge breadth of customer worksheets and the complexity of many of those. And I'm always astonished by how elegant some of these complex customer worksheets are that are created. So Mathcad makes recording complicated math simple. It doesn't mean it's a simple tool. So much of what we add to each release is math content that can be used to greatly expand the complexity of the worksheets you can create. So we've talked about the gradient operator and the PDE solve function. In Prime 9, we're also once again greatly improving and adding to the functionality in the symbolic engine. You'll be able to evaluate first order differential equations, and in fact some higher order ODEs. The symbolic function list is expanded with logarithmic and elliptic integral functions. You'll be able to make assumptions on function result using the assume keyword. We have the ability to find symbolically, which will be available in solve blocks. And one we just added, in fact, last week, they were showing me a demo of this. You can now define definite integrals of functions of a complex variable. So you can have bounds for an integral that are complex. So these all have applications within product design, and it's our job to demonstrate how they are useful. There are people out there that will be able to use these straight away. And we also have some great usability updates and some pretty big ones, and some that I hope will make legacy Mathcad users happy in this release. You know, we have a custom color picker in previous versions of Mathcad. You know, we have quite limited ability to change the color of things. So for example, here, we used to just have this palette, but now we have a more colors button. And now you can choose, as you can do in other documentation management applications, custom colors. And it just gives you more control over how things are going to look in the worksheets. So you're not limited to that default color palette now. For things like text formatting, math formatting, plots, anywhere that you have color in Mathcad will now have the custom color picker. We have a go-to page command. Again, this is a very simple functionality, greatly used by legacy customers. I don't think I have a large worksheet open here, so it's difficult to show the value of it. But you can go down here, click this field at the bottom left, put in a new page number, and just immediately jump to that page. And it just makes it very easy to navigate around very, very large worksheets. We're introducing a legacy usability enhancement for the long-time Mathcad user. And this is the math to text input selection. So this is, if you want to just enter text immediately in the worksheet, right now, if you just put the cursor in the worksheet and type, you're going to get math, because math is this is a math region. When I do this, I probably should zoom in here. Apologies. This is a math region, but long-time users have asked me very vocally, please allow me to just press a word and then keyboard shortcut to change it into a text region. And this is an older demo build I have, but we do have that now where you press space, it changes that into a text region. And again, it sounds very simple. It sounds like something we should have been able to put in before. Even these simple things need to be fitted into the list of R&D requirements each year. I'm trying to make sure that we fit more of these in each release. This will get used by a lot of people. It makes it much easier just to create worksheets using this. So again, these are things that make the application that much easier to use. So where to next? So we're looking at what we need to include in the post-Prime 9 releases. Internally, we maintain a living database of functionality, feedback from customers, which we use to prioritize release content. The items on the next few slides are from that list. This isn't an order of priority. It's not comprehensive. I didn't copy everything into these slides, but the first items are the larger items and will need to be addressed earlier. So scripted controls at the top of the list. And I know there will be people on this listening in right now who desperately want scripted controls in the product. We haven't ignored it. It's not in the product now, not because we don't think it's important. It's not used by everybody, but those people that use scripted controls use it a lot. And it's a very large area of functionality. So we've started a project, and I have a working group on the PTC Mathcad community that I'm accepting membership to, where we're going to discuss how we're going to do this in Prime 10. But it's a mandate for me to get this functionality in some form in Prime 10. And scripted controls are controls like drop-down menus that can be scripted to interact with the rest of the worksheet and the system. So we already have a combo box control in Mathcad that's set up using a simple edit mode, but scripted controls offer more manual setup for the user. Outside of scripted controls, we're looking at items like autosave, custom unit system, and align regions. And these are items that regularly get voted on in the ideas site of the PTC community. Now, a lot of these, again, aren't calculation driven. Again, it might seem that the drive of the product is to provide functionality that allow users to get the result that they need, the number that they need. And I think a lot of that math functionality, there are one or two holdouts that we still need to put in, but a lot of the actual math functionality is in the product. A lot of what we need to add is a way to structure, manage, and document that math. And it might not sound like that's as important, but it is, because again, the ultimate goal here is to be able to communicate this and have it usable at any stage in the design process. And making it as easy to communicate as possible really assists that drive. So as I said before, we need to make that balance between each release. Binary, octal, and hexadecimal support, right? Result formatting and calculation. It's an example of something we will enhance the math capabilities of the product. And I'm looking at putting that in Prime 10. Subscript and superscript in text boxes, header and footer content enhancements, are documentation updates. And again, it might sound like those should be easy to implement, but depending on the architecture of the product, there may be things that we need to do that might not seem obvious to people. Subscript and superscript is something I really want to get in the product, and we've wanted in for a long time. But we need to manipulate the text control we use to scale subscripts and superscripts correctly, dependent on the font type. So there's a lot of interaction with the system, and we just need to make sure we get that right. And we have a project to focus on performance, right, to make sure that where necessary, we can increase the performance of Mathcad Prime. Because when we're presenting this to customers, there are a number of distinct areas we want to make sure we get right. The math content is comprehensive. The documentation content adequately enables users to communicate that math content to people that use the worksheets. We need integrations or ability to integrate the product into other design processes. And the product needs to work as fast as you expect it to work. Now, there are some things you do with the product, some math calculations that are going to take a long time because you are crunching a lot of numbers. But performance enhancements are things that we consider each release. So thanks to the extensive communication we get from customers, we know what's being asked for in the product. But I need people asking for it and continue to ask for it because it greatly helps us determine when and how we add it. All the feedback does contribute to the process. And that's it. Thank you very much for letting me talk to you today about Mathcad. The ability to document live engineering calculations is a critical part of the design process, and Mathcad Prime is an integral application in the suite of products that PTC offers. Right, it fills a position in that design process that is unique for Mathcad, and it's something that I love to talk about. So I'm always happy to talk to customers about it, what we're doing with it. And if you haven't done already, I hope you can try it out soon. So many thanks, and very happy to answer any questions in the time we have remaining.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Great presentation. We do actually have some questions. So if you have a couple of minutes, I'd love to run some of them by you.
Absolutely.
You talked about user input and customer feedback, and I think we have some of that right here. And the first one, yep, is I will migrate to Prime when you include symbolic in the solve blocks.
So that's actually, so when we talk about symbolics in solve blocks, what we're talking about, what legacy Mathcad did was allow the ability for find to be symbolically evaluated in solve blocks, and that's going to be in 9. We've already implemented that. I wish I uploaded a worksheet where I can demonstrate that, but symbolically evaluating find in solve blocks is going to be in 9. That's what we did in legacy worksheets. That's the gap we've filled in Prime 9. If that's something that you want, that you have more information on about how you use it, and you want to make sure that's what we've done is in fact how you use it or need it, please reach out to Alfasoft, and through them we can talk about that. But symbolically evaluating solve blocks for the find function will be in Prime 9. So we'll be in the release that comes out in March next year.
Oh, that solves that problem. So next question is, what do I need to do if I want to move from Mathcad 15 to Mathcad Prime?
So I would suggest that the easiest way is to talk to like a technical support specialist from Alfasoft, number one, about your use case for Mathcad 15. What are your worksheets? What do you use in them? How do you drive them? What content do you have? You can try Mathcad Prime. If you're a subscriber to Mathcad, you have access to Mathcad Prime. If you're not, you can try the Mathcad Prime trial to see what's in the product. There is a migration guide you can access from the product that tells you what functionality is in Mathcad Prime and some of the gotchas when you migrate from a legacy application to the newer application. But the best thing to do is to convert a document, convert it, see what it looks like, try using it, make sure that the functionality that you need, because there are some gaps that we're filling. They're in many cases they're the less used areas of functionality, but if you use one of those less used areas of functionality, that's important to you. So it's important to us to make sure that you can do what you need to do in the latest version. So I think, reaching out to an expert and discussing what you do with the product is important, and then trying the new product. And there are a number of simple ways to try it. And that's, I think, the best way to move forward with understanding if you can move forward now.
Great. So I think we only have time for one more question, and that is, can I try the software before I buy it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a trial version of Mathcad where you can try the full functionality for 30 days. After that, it converts to like a cut down version where you can still continue to try the basic functionality, but the so-called premium functionality is kind of locked from use. But it normally really only takes the 30 days to understand whether it's something that you will find useful in your design process. And again, I go back to the drive for Prime back in 2009 or 8, or even when the original company first made the decision to move to a new platform, which was, we want to make picking up and using this very easy. I miss through the pandemic, I missed being able to see customers in person And I missed people like Alfasoft being able to see customers in person, to be able to present to them, here's the product. Because I don't think there's much that can beat putting someone in front of Mathcad or any application, opening it, trying it out. Mathcad is very easy to get up and running with. And so the trial, I think, is a very easy way to immediately understand the value of the product. I mean, it really doesn't take long to start typing and creating engineering content in the product. So yeah, we have a trial, and I think how you get access to that, you can reach out to Alfasoft, and they'll provide you with the process to get it. It's very simple.
Yeah. Just if you need a trial, just send an email to info@alfasoft.com, and we'll provide you with a link. So no problems there.
Yeah.
And thank you. With that, thank you very much, Andrew, for a great presentation. And we'd love to have you back soon. Always a pleasure.
Anytime. Thanks, Finn. I appreciate it. And thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate that too. Thank you.